In this video, I will be revisiting my mixed-use project from my undergrad study. I will start basically from scratch, starting from analyzing the project brief, creating the site model, organizing program blocks, all the way to modeling the building. I will also compare how I did things back then versus how I would approach it differently with more updated tools. This video is going to be full of useful tips and tricks, so make sure to stick around to learn all about them and use them in your own project. So let's get started. The tricky thing about this project was that the building square footage requirement was massive. With 6 FAR on a huge site, the total buildable area was up to 80,000 square meters. The sheer scale of it became a challenge because we have never dealt with project at this scale. Now, if you're having trouble wrapping your head around this massive area like I did, one thing I recommend is doing a program blocking. I will show you how I did this before and how I would do things differently now. So back then, I opened up Google Earth to take a screenshot of the satellite view of our site and import it into Rhino. And within Rhino, I will put that into a picture and start drawing rectangles based on the project requirement, which basically involves translating the numerical values from the project brief and then modeling them in 3D space so that I can get a more intuitive sense of how big the building needs to be. Now back then, I had to model everything manually. I took the number, square rooted the value so that I can get one side of the square and then model them one by one in Rhino. When I saw this being done for the first time at an office, it blew my mind away. But at the same time, looking at this process again today, I feel like things could have been a lot faster. As I featured on my channel before, snaptrude allows you to enter your project information and your project site and generate the site plan for you. For this particular example, I'll be entering the same site that I used in my school project, and also upload the project brief PDF that I got from my professors. I also find that copy and pasting some key information from the PDF also helps a lot. Now all you have to do is hit enter and sit back and relax. And snaptrude just released the student plan, which allows all eligible students to access professional plans for free. This is a rare opportunity for AI tools to be available for free for students. So if you want to get the hands on the cutting edge technologies, make sure to check out the link in the description and sign up today. Alright, back to the main program. And what's cool about snaptrude's AI is that you can see all the thought process behind every step. And as you can see on the screen, it'll move on to the program creation, where it reads through the document that I've provided and figures out what kind of areas we need to fulfill for this project. And boom, just like that, snaptrude has imported the site as well as the buildings in 3D. Look at all the program blocks AI has created for you. If you look at the summary on the right, everything should add up to the exact requirement, and everything is color-coded and then grouped together by the section. And they will even massage the proportion so that it becomes more useful for that given program. And now if you let the AI do its thing, they will start stacking them into more volumetric format so that you can get a good sense of how big your building has to be. Now this task would have taken me so long if I were to do this manually. This would have been like a day of work for an intern. But now, in this day and age, you're able to do everything in 10 minutes without even touching the keyboard for a while. What a time to be alive, isn't it? On the left, you'll see the building envelope colored by different departments. And on the right side, you can see the program breakdown in more detailed, smaller blocks. And a nice cherry on top of all this is this AI-generated rendering of what your building could potentially look like. Now, I know you may not want your building to look exactly like this, but you can present them as a direction that you're headed towards. And in this case, I think it worked out pretty well because our building is located in Liberty Village in Toronto, which is known to be a post-industrial, very hipster neighborhood. And they would definitely have building type just like this one. So I could use this image at a very early stage pinup to just discuss the direction that we're heading in terms of the typology. That AI has done the groundwork for you. Now you can go ahead and open this up in the snaptrude editor or export it to Rhino or even Revit. But before we switch over to Rhino and go into full 3D modeling mode, I want to show you a cool trick I learned as well. I'm going to click on the Open Editor button, and this will open up the snaptrude editor where you can do basic adjustments. Once the UI has loaded, you should be able to see your site as well as the program blocks you've seen earlier from the plan view. And to navigate to different level, you can click on the different levels shown on the left panel over there. And you can also check out the elevations by clicking on these. They come with these elevation markers automatically to streamline the process. But for now, let's switch over to the Present tab because I want to show you how to do some program study in a really quick way. Now, if you switch over to this tab, there should be several sheets that are pre-populated with the program blocks you have seen earlier. So for now, I just want to go ahead and print these with my printer. So I'm going to change the paper size to A4. And once everything is ready, I'm going to go ahead and click export. Now that the file is ready, I'm going to go ahead and open up the PDF and print it. And yes, that's right. We're going to be modeling in real life today. Now there's something about playing around with the physical objects. It really gives you even more intuitive sense of the space that you're dealing with. And as a bonus point, reviewers and critics really love this kind of stuff. And I'm also a bit of a believer that the tool that we use for design actually sets the limit on the kind of designs we produce. I think there's a distinct phase where the design turned more diagrammatic with the rise of Rhino and other 3D design programs. And before that, when people had to use more classical methods of exploring the design, there was like a certain style as well. And I think in this day and age that's filled with more diagrammatic buildings, I think it might be really fun to play around with physical objects and create something that is a little bit out of the ordinary. Something I didn't get to do this time around is pasting these paper onto foam blocks or foam core boards. By doing so, they'll gain even more spatial quality that you can use to study. And then you can start stacking them in different ways to get even more interesting iterations out of them. As a last point, be creative. You don't have to be limited to foam blocks and, basswood models. When I was working on this actual project, I used the Lego blocks for this to kind of approximate the amount of space each program takes up and created a model for that. The downside of doing this is that the dimensions aren't really accurate. So this is only a very early phase model, unlike using the actual printout of the model that is proportional to the amount of space you're supposed to produce. Okay, so now we tried exploring the massing in real life using paper cutouts. This process can even be automated on snaptrude. So let me show you how AI would do the same thing, but in digital space. So let's head back to snaptrude and click on the adjacency tab at the top right corner. And from here, all you have to do is click on the compute button, and then AI will go ahead and try to find out the optimal adjacency diagram for the programs you have. After a bit of wait, you can see that there are little lines that are drawn between the massing blocks. You don't see a whole lot of them right now because they're right next to each other, and a lot of the lines are inside the 3D massing. But if you go into the plan, you can kind of see how these lines are connected between different levels. Now, we want to create a diagram for presentation and studying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten the structure into a single level. Now that everything is in one level, I'm going to go ahead and recompute adjacency analysis. And look at that. Our programs are neatly laid out in this diagrammatic format, where each program block is connected to each other by these little lines that delineate the relationship between these spaces. And what's cool about snaptrude is that you are fully working on this in an editor, which means that if you see arrangements that you don't like, you can just simply drag and drop to rearrange the blocks. And there are various tools to align different blocks together as well, so make sure to try using all these features. You can also delete and re-establish different connections if you see ones that are created incorrectly. Once you arrive at a diagram that you're happy with, you can go ahead and click on packing. What this will do is they'll take the relationship you see here and then try to put the diagrams in a compact way so that they're right next to each other. And look at that. Just within less than a minute, all the blocks are arranged together in a way that is space efficient. Now I'm going to use this as a starting point to start modeling out the building. Now to do so, since our building is multi-story, I'm going to go ahead and select these blocks and send them to a higher level. And then I'll send another set to level 2, and so on and so forth. Let's go over to 3D view to check out how this looks now. So as you can see, these blocks are located on different elevations. And now I'm going to go ahead and start stacking the little blocks together. What's nice about snaptrude is that they give you a little outline of the blocks below so that it's much easier to align your slab edges with the level below. So we have roughly stacked the departments together. I'm going to go ahead and start working on creating early stage concept rendering. Is super easy with snaptrude as well. All you really have to do is set up a view that you think is going to be interesting, and then go over to the renders tab and click on the plus icon. This will bring up a new window where you can specify the kind of style you want. I'm going to leave it at conceptual, exterior daytime, and enter the following prompt. And make sure to play around with different prompts to see which one works the best for your project. And the rendering takes a little while, so you can put this window aside and continue working until the rendering is done. In this case, I'm just going to fast forward it so that you can see the final results right away. So here's the result. Unlike many image generation AI, this actually results in a very conceptual look. Objects are not laid out proportionally on purpose in order to create more interesting and inspiring image. Alright, now I'm going to switch over to the editor and start manipulating the floor plan. Snaptrude editor is super intuitive to use. You probably only need like 10 minutes to get the hang of it. Everything is like drag and drop and really easy to get started. I like how they instantly calculate the area for each program block so that I can make sure that I'm following the requirements. Once you're done with the basic blocking, you should be able to switch over to the BIM tab and actually create the floor plan with the wall thickness, window, glazing, and furniture, and everything. In this particular case, I'll probably just stop here and place our building on site and start preparing for the presentation board. So once I drag and drop in the perspective that I've just created, and I'll use the built-in Nano Banana feature to create a perspective rendering. All you have to do is enter the prompt on the top left corner and hit enter. And within seconds, you get this nice rendering. Now onto the fun part. I'm going to go ahead and lay out all the drawings we've produced so far onto this panel. And there you have it. Within minutes, you produce this very professional and presentable panel. Alright, before we wrap up, let me just show you a quick workflow on the Rhino side. So remember the model that we exported from snaptrude? Once you import them into Rhino, they're in a mesh format, which is a little hard to work with within Rhino. So what I would normally do is I'll select everything and use the command mesh to NURB command. And within minutes, it should convert all the meshes into NURBs. Okay, now I can simply hit delete to remove all the meshes, and you're left with NURB surfaces. But as you can see, there's a lot of triangulation going on. So to fix that, you can use the command merge all coplanar surfaces. We'll let that run for a minute as well. Okay, and just like that, all the triangulation has been removed and you have a clean surfaces to work with. So that was my quick tip for importing the model to Rhino. Those were just a few of interesting tips I found while I was working on this particular project. What do you think was the most interesting trick you've seen so far? I would love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments. I will be sharing more interesting tips and tricks for succeeding in school as well as applying in your architectural career. If you want to learn more, make sure to subscribe so that you can see more videos like this in your feed. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.